I started working with sand when I was in grad school. As I collected sand from a number of different places, I started noticing the differences like in the little details. And so that got me really interested in the individual grains that we see in a pile of sand. And that's what my current work is based on. My process starts with the material. I have a very experimental studio practice where I feel like I'm a little bit of a scientist, kind of trying different things. I have both a physical and a digital workflow. So I use physical materials like sand and paper and money and make collages, but then I also take that footage into the computer and I further manipulate it there. My goal is that you sort of can't tell where the physical stops and the digital begins. I'm inspired a lot by the experimental animators of the past. Caroline Leaf has always been with me since I was a student. Her work just really broke a lot of boundaries as far as material. She was one of the first people to work with sand, and she's always kind of reinventing new ways of approaching animation. Same with Ishu Patel, Norman McLaren. Those are sort of some of the stalwart experimental animators of the 70s that really influenced my work. These days I'm really influenced by my colleagues at UMBC, by the art that I see in Baltimore. There's a real pushing of boundaries of not necessarily playing by the rules there. People just love to experiment. And that's kind of where I got into installation, was kind of thinking about how to move animation outside of the typical confines where you find it and put it in a different context. So what we see here is we see kind of a glacial timeline that's been translated into a human timeline, so where we can actually start to see the movement and see individual grains of sand kind of moving their way through this environment with the cooperation of ice and sunshine and gravity. When I work with these individual grains of sand, I'm discovering kind of new relationships and new aspects of the world that I hadn't thought of because I'm looking at things at a different scale. So what I've done is I've created these little environments for these grains of sand and allowed them to explore those environments the way that I imagined maybe they would if they had their own autonomy, perhaps. So that's what you see in the animation and also in some of the sculptures that are here in the gallery. They kind of are those environments that these little imaginary beings, perhaps, inhabit. Animating at this micro scale is definitely a long process. The smallest little movement has big consequences on the screen. So, you know, I'm really kind of like using toothpicks, using tweezers to move little grains of sand. You have to be very precise about focus. My shooting is very camera-based, using macro lenses. And you definitely get into a zone when you're paying attention to the little details. And sometimes the most interesting things just happen by accident because you really can't control gravity at that scale. It's like stepping into a different state of being from the way we exist as humans. I'm Corrie Francis Parks. I'm an animator and an installation artist.